The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, this is Tom Lane, DM2 Software's Vice President of Sales and Marketing. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's What's New in version 2013 webinar. Before I introduce today's presenters, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Because of the number of attendees we have on today's webinar, everyone's phones will stay on mute. If you have any questions during the webinar, please enter them into the question window that you see in the lower right of your screen. We'll try to answer everyone's questions at the end of the webinar. If we're unable to get to your question, we'll follow up with you individually after the webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded. As soon as the recording is available, we'll post it on our website and our YouTube channel, and I'll send you a message to let you know when the presentation and the recording is available for you to view. On that note, I would like to introduce today's presenters. First up will be Chris Lemonier, our Vice President of Technology. Also joining us is Rob Pierce, our Vice President of Professional Services, and our sales team, Lisa Clark, our newest sales rep, who's handling the Eastern region for us, Vicki Dalton, our Western region sales rep, and Anthony Rodriguez, our inside sales / customer relations rep. And we have a lot of material to cover, so on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Lemonier. Take it away, Chris.
All right, thanks, Tom. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm going to take a little bit of time this morning to talk to you about some under-the-hood things we've been working on for the last few years, and we're very excited about the announcement. It's going to get a little geeky in here, but if you'll hang with me, we'll get to some new features and some new capabilities I think you guys will be real excited about. Next. Tom, can you advance it?
Yeah, I'm trying to. It just locked up on me. Oh, there we go.
All right, there we go. All right. Ignore the technical difficulties here. The framework is what we're calling the underlying changes we've made to the system over the last few years. Sage began their transition to framework about 10 years ago and completed it about 3 years ago. It's installed at thousands of Sage customers. DM2 specifically has been working on our framework modules for the last 5 years and have been deploying them for the last 3. So we're going to talk a lot about what framework is and the benefits and things that go on behind it. It's really a word that encompasses a lot of different technologies, but it's building the platform for the future of the DM2 ERP system. If you are on version 4.3 or later, you have been, which I'm sure everybody on this call is, you have been using some of DM2's framework modules already. We've been rolling those out, like I said, over the last few years. And with 2013, the release we're talking about today, all of the DM2 system has been moved to this new architecture and all of Sage. So the entire system from end to end is in the new framework. Next. Some of the benefits you get right away are system stability. Specifically, the file structure's changed and the index files have been removed. We traditionally had a lot of things calculated all over the system. Those have been consolidated. So now if we call it write once, use plenty, which is where the code is reused. So if we need to make a modification to fuel tax or fix a defect, we're not having to modify that in all the programs. We use a single program for that now. And that really improves the quality and leads to faster development. We don't have to reinvent the wheel each time for custom and for our core development to keep up with the Sage systems and Sage's new release. It allows for easier customization of the system. Of course, no two companies are the same, so most of our customers have some degree of modification. Framework is really an enabling technology for that simplifies things and leads to really a lower total cost of ownership for upgrades. It also opens up the system for third-party integration, truck automation systems, warehouse management systems, etc. Next. Generally, what you see in a framework modules are things like all the reports are crystal-based where you can modify them, role-based security similar to what Microsoft uses, saved report settings, a sticky print and preview. These are the kind of things that became universal across the entire system as it moved up to framework. Next. Improved batch auditing. Of course, system, we really recommend you use batching, and this gives a lot of information about who created it, date and time, and all that. we write that once and all the modules can use it. So that's really giving some examples of that kind of technology, as well as memo management, adding file attachments, improved security, all those kinds of things. Next. One of the features that comes out of the framework also is advanced custom office. We know that you guys are getting, or like I said earlier, you all have different ways of doing business and you need to tweak the system, maybe change the screen layout or add some additional data elements. With the new framework-based system in 2013, you're able to do that across the entire system. You can add fields that you may define. You can add tables, that's entire files of different types of field elements. Those fields are stored in what we call the primary tables. It makes them really easy to use in Crystal, really easy to use in Excel, those kind of tools. There's something called an object workflow, which allows those UDFs to be passed from screen to screen. So something you put in order entry can be sent to invoice entry, all those kind of things. So it really puts some tools in your hands or in your IT staff to really customize the system to your needs. Next. Enhanced user interface, resizable screens, grid controls, hyperlinks for quick access, sorting and hiding fields, all the kind of things you expect in a modern user interface on an ERP system. Next. We also introduced dual grid entry across the system that allows you to add fields and do data entry directly in an Excel-style entry system. If you're using 4.3 or later, you've seen this in sales order and in the general ledger. That's now rolled out across the system, so you'll see that everywhere, where you can actually reformat and redesign the screens to best meet your workflow needs. Next. So if we look at what DM2's been doing under the hood, we completely rewrote the system from the ground up, focused on following standards to the letter, supporting all Sage tools, i.e. the custom office system, opening up appropriate places and connections for third-party integration, and designed the system to scale. You guys are bigger, doing more business, more transactions, more users. System is architected from the ground up to scale into large user counts and large transaction volumes. Next. So how did we do this? It's really made up of 3 different components. One is code isolation. The other is what we call an application programmer interface or API, and all of that running on top of SQL Server. Next. So we'll talk a little bit about code isolation. It's conceptually the idea that, Tom, go ahead and advance it next. Conceptually, it's the idea that, you have a Sage program, and in the before, as you guys know, we're built on top of the Sage platform itself, and we actually add in the DM2 enhancements to make it Petroleum specific and add those capabilities to the system. But in pre-framework architecture, we've actually modified the Sage programs to add those enhancements. So every time Sage came out with a new program, DM2 would then have to modify that program again to add those features back in, which takes a long time, increases the amount of time. For example, the space between releases, Sage comes out with a new release and DM2 might be a year behind that. This is one of the reasons, because it was embedded in there. In the new framework, next, the system is built in layers. There's a service layer, there's a business logic layer, and a user interface layer. In DM2, those layers work together. You as a user don't experience this, but under the hood it's a major change, because each one of those layers can be modified independently of the Sage system or of the DM2 system in the case that it comes to custom. So for a better way to think about this is when you're getting custom programming done. So go next. So before the framework, we would have to take the DM2 program, and because the custom was embedded inside of the DM2 program, we would actually have to open that program up and redo all the custom every time you upgraded, which of course increases the amount of time it takes. That increases the cost, as well as the risk that we'd introduce a defect, as we had to redo all that custom. So some customers have a lot of custom, some have very little, but we'd end up having to redo it over and over again, which led to higher cost of upgrades and more time, more risk for failure. Next. So what's happened is, in the new framework, it's broken into layers, just like I was mentioning. There's a Sage layer, there's a DM2 layer, and a custom programming layer. Those layers work together to give you a seamless experience throughout the system, so you can't really tell where DM2 ends and Sage begins, that kind of configuration. Next. But that being said, we're able to actually replace any one of those layers at any time with a new version without affecting the others. So for instance, if we need to replace the business object layer, the customer business, we can put in a new version with a defect fix or an enhancement without having to redo the custom and without modifying Sage's layer. So it allows for us to really attack and lower the total cost of ownership of the system. Next. The object architecture itself is honored by Visual Integrator. External objects follow business logic. So if your IT department writes their own add-ons, that follows any logic that's added. And it allows for, in the future, applied service patches, so we can actually push out service patches where defects are being fixed or minor enhancements. That will lead to lower total cost of ownership. Next. Next piece is the API. Next. In the past, when we're working with a partnership like adding a truck automation or a warehouse system, both groups had to work together in coordination through releases and upgrades to make sure that one of us bringing out a new version didn't break the other one's system. In the new system, next, we now have an application programming interface bridge that allows us to connect those systems together and upgrade them independently of each other so that you can stay on the latest version of a third-party system and stay on the latest version of the DM2 system, but those things can happen independently of each other, which is a real benefit to the partnerships and for you guys. Next. So much easier internal development, third-party integration. Your own IT department can use it, and DM2 enhancements won't break that integration. Next. Some examples, third-party system can create orders, takes 20 lines of code, it's very straightforward. New web interfaces, providing web entry, data entry from a browser, truck automation, and data import and export are all things that will be enabled by the API. Next. So finally, Microsoft SQL. Next. So DM2 is announcing today that 2013 is available on the SQL platform. Next. We're adding the ERP system to 3 other systems we already have running on SQL, our StoreLink Retail, our DM2 SQL Intelligence, and Sage CRM all run on SQL Server as an option. It's not required, well, it's required, but for DM2 Sage ERP, it is an optional thing. So if you want to stay with the proprietary optimized database of ProvideX, you can, or you can move up to SQL Server and get the benefits of SQL Server as an option for your ERP. Next. So the SQL benefits are really scale. That's what that was about. I mentioned earlier transaction levels, number of users. We really wanted to support larger systems with larger user counts and larger transaction volumes, and SQL enables that. It's an open standard your IT department can take advantage of. It enables advanced real-time data analytics and Excel and other tools that you can hook into. So that makes the data more open and more accessible to you than it's ever been, and you'll really be able to take advantage of that. Next. So we've been deploying it as a back-end, or Sage has been deploying it as a back-end for the last 2 years. It's live at many customers and is a proven technology. We've been doing extensive platform testing for the first 6 months of the year, and currently we're in field testing with several control release customers and going into general release here shortly. So it all looks great, and it's all tested out and been a reliable platform. Sage, of course, has been shipping this for a long time, and have worked any kinks out. We've really taken advantage of that and done the testing on the petroleum side. Next. So to recap, framework goals that we really had were to scale to larger transaction flows and user counts, a lower total cost of ownership through less expensive upgrades, faster, less expensive custom programming, timing the new DM2 releases closer to the Sage releases, and more end-user customization capability. So these were the things we really wanted to get out of the move to framework over the last 5 years. They're also the goals Sage had in moving over the last 10, and we're really excited about this new release in 2013. So now we're going to move on and talk about some of the features and new things that have been added to the software. So I'm going to introduce Vicki Dalton, and she's going to cover some new features and new capabilities in the fuels section of the DM2 Petroleum Insights.
Thank you, Chris. Next. I'd like to just cover, there is an addition of the Sales Order Dispatch Manager in version 4.5 that I felt mentioning today it was worth mentioning. In that, you're able to provide your dispatcher or people in your organization that need to source the fuel this dispatch manager. You'll find it just standard in the Petrolink module. And what they would do here is they would just pick the customer, the ship to, the effective date and time of when that customer desires a delivery. The freight carrier would default, but they, of course, could change that. You'll see down the left side the items in which it's a template of the items that are sold to the customer. And across the right, you'll see the lift points of where we go to source product. And you can have as many of those as needed for each individual customer, of course, for their ship to. What the screen identifies for the dispatcher is that you can identify what your cost is and what the customer's price is, and the price includes freight. So you might be able to go pick up product at a terminal, but the very best place for you to pick it up and for the customer, you can identify that right here on the screen. Highlight in yellow, and as you do, you'll see in the lower left-hand corner, you could create a quote right from here or create an order. By highlighting, you don't have to pick it all up at the same terminal. You actually could pick one product up, of course, one supplier and one at another supplier. Next. From there, it will create a sales order for you. And as it creates the sales order, it identifies the vendor and the pickup point. You'll see that in the right-hand lower corner of this screen. So that as you then send the order out to the common carrier or to your driver, they know where to source product. Next, please. And this is just illustrating a delivery ticket that does include where they should pull product. These different products, of course, can be identified. Next. And a report can be printed for you. Now what happens here is that on the dispatch manager, after you say create order, it will bring you back to this screen. So if you'd like to email it, fax it directly over to a common carrier, you can do it right from the screen, of course, or source it out to your driver. Next. And this is just showing a report so that if you have multiple people dispatching your loads, you can identify which ones have been sent on to those carriers or to your drivers. So it's just a great feature functionality that you all should know is there. Gives some great tools in the hands of your dispatchers to identify where is the very best source point for us to pick up, you folks to pick up your product, and for the customer, best price for your customer. Next. Moving on, I'll talk about new enhancements in the version 2013. We've added, for the Connecticut folks, we've added a gross receipts tax. If this comes to a state near you, you can also, of course, use it for your state. What it does is that the business case is that in Connecticut, there's a tax on gasoline of $3 per gallon. If, for example, you were to sell 1,000 gallons to customer, but you're pricing your fuel at $2.80, it will then put the gross receipts tax at $2,000 on the $2,800. But if you go beyond the price of the gross receipts tax of $3.50, it will still only price the tax on the $3 per gallon, even though you're charging your customer the 50 cents more per gallon. Next. Partial tax exempt. This is a very important feature. It's both for excise and sales tax. So now you folks can define what is the partial percentage for these taxes in the system. Next. On bill of lading, not only is it a new framework, but it also has a new layout. You'll notice that in bill of lading, if you work functionally inside the module today, there are no longer two tabs where you pick up product and you distribute product. It is all on now one screen, saving you all time. Next. This is just illustrating that you can, of course, press the F2 for lookup, or you can also press the magnifying glass and you can see all of your pickup points here, just right on one screen. Next. If you press the fuel tax button, you can also see the taxes that are applying, that are going to apply to that specific line that you are on. Next. I'd like to talk about tax maintenance. We've done a great job here for you where that you can actually copy one tax to another, saving you a lot of time in setups if you should do another like product. So it does save you a lot of time on that tax maintenance. Next. Freight rate maintenance has been enhanced. We have freight in, of course, freight out, and now you can see it on one screen. You can filter it, of course, for those 4 components, but you can also see in the lower, right below the list records, that it says freight rate lookup. You can also look up a specific location or area, and it will then display for you. So instead of taking time to run this and having them all show, you can narrow down your search, saving you quick view of what you are looking for. You'll also notice on the right side there is a surcharge button. Next. And we've enhanced surcharge for you so that now you have a freight in, freight out, and it is date sensitive. So if you have carriers and that they're charging you their surcharge, you could make the cost to customer different if you'd so like. So we've just made these screens very viewable, easy for you. Next. Freight rate maintenance, you have it now in the system tier that was added in 4.5, but again, I thought it was worth mentioning here, where you could have a minimum charge for a certain amount of gallons, but yet in this example, if they were to purchase over 200 gallons, 251 gallons, then it would be a cents per gallon instead of a flat rate. And that can be automatically added to the invoice, so no one needs to think about it as this setup is done. Once set up, it just will happen naturally onto the invoice for customer. Next. And then the last thing we have here is that you do have an option in bill of lading options to have freight based on gross gallons. It's a check mark that you make inside of the bill of lading, so that if you were to deliver 7,500, pick up 7,500 gallons but deliver 7,510 gallons, it would be on that gross, not on what you picked up. So it just helps you with your pricing for customers, getting that the right price, freight, I should say, on those gallons. Next. Now I'd like to introduce Anthony Rodriguez, and he'll cover enhancements in the area of lubricants.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anthony, and I'm the Inside Sales Client Relations Rep for DM2. Today, I just want to briefly talk about our lubricant interfaces. DM2 as a company has a strong history of relationships with major oil companies. We introduced our first major oil lubricant interface in February of 2001, and that was the ExxonMobil interface. And this interface integrates with the ExxonMobil network, or PEGMOS, and it allows buybacks, purchase orders, supplemental allowances from Exxon to be an automated process. And since 2001, when we released this interface, we've released 4 more that are integrated with major oil companies as far as the lubricant interfaces for you to utilize. So why is this important to you, the jobber? Well, when you talk about buybacks and rebates and these supplemental allowances, these are time-consuming, redundant, and manually intensive processes that have to be done to reconcile your lube orders. And as many of you know, this process can be time-intensive, and a lot of times it's very redundant and needs to be manually entered a second time for the major oil company. And of course, they're always very timely in getting their rebates and buybacks processed for you. So that's what we call the major oil lubricant interface. The purpose of this interface and the relationship DM2 has had with you for many years is to help you save time, help your processing be more accurate, and the bottom line is it helps you improve your cash flow. So our lube interfaces will help you save time by automatically uploading and downloading routine transaction information directly to your lube supplier's FTP sites and into DM2. It improves your cash flow by reducing the amount of time it takes to process and reconcile these transactions with the major oil company and also within DM2. And it helps eliminate any errors or oversights that might be made by processing all these transactions manually, so it helps improve your accuracy. So if you're already using these interfaces, again, they allow you to be flexible. This will allow you to expand your lubricant offerings. We're always trying to improve this module for you so you can be confident that your relationship with us as your technology partner is a good one, because we're always trying to evolve. So we do have interfaces with Castrol, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, Shell, and now we want to introduce a new relationship we have with Valvoline. Valvoline and DM2 created a way for you to submit your invoices that are related to your customers, also known as buybacks. So currently when you make a sale to one of your customers now, That customer pays Valvoline directly instead of paying you. And in order to get reimbursed from Valvoline, you have to enter the sales order invoices so you can capture the sales information and then manually repeat that process with Valvoline. This has now been automated and with the Valvoline interface, so that's one of the things that are new in 2013 as far as the major oil lubricant interfaces goes. So I'm now going to turn it over to Lisa Clark, who is our Eastern Region sales rep, and she's going to be covering CardLink, what's new in 2013.
Thanks, Anthony. CardLink, DM2 CardLink underwent a total rewrite to the framework in version 2013 with multi-networks in mind. So CardLink now utilizes the new business object framework programming architecture that Chris had mentioned earlier. This new architecture gives you the ability to use Sage's customizer module on all of the CardLink tables and on the screens. It also allows you to create multiple report settings, make user-defined fields and tables, customize some grids, and resize windows. And now, since all the reports are crystal-based, every CardLink report can be fully customized to meet your specific needs. Next slide. Over 50% of the CFN and Pacific Pride customers use DM2 CardLink. So with the purchase of Pacific Pride by FleetCor and the integration of the cards, we remain committed to working on the dual networks. And the beginning of this journey was started in version 4.5 with 2013 built on top of that, laying the foundation so that you can make the move when you're ready. The networks that we currently are interfacing with today are CFN, Pacific Pride, Manatech ComData, as well as we have a new Voyager network interface. This new interface eliminates the need of treating Voyager fleet card transactions as proprietary transactions, would save you money by eliminating the annual per site fee. And Fuel Master card system is to be soon added as well. So for those companies, those of you running more than one network or one card type, it's gotten a lot easier for you than it was before. Next. The card maintenance screen has improved to support. So CardLink networks. CardLink works now across all networks. So the CardLink alert gives you a competitive advantage as well as your customers a value add. So whether you're a CFN participant, a Pacific Pride marketer, or you're operating those multiple CardLock networks, or just even your proprietary card, CardLock alert features will alert your customer via exception reporting or else instantly via email after the completed convert process. This can be set up automatically to send email alerts to your customers as well. Next. Next screen, please. The card maintenance feature has also been improved to support duplication of card numbers across multiple networks. So for example, now you can assign card number 1, 2, 3 to each of your CFN, Pacific Pride, and or Voyager customers. And you can also set up restrictions for each network card on a card-by-card basis. And to give you more flexibility in how you name products, the product description field has been expanded to 30 characters. A new network product cross-reference table has been added to give you the ability to create a product cross-reference file for the network CFN, Pacific Pride, and Voyager. And the site code file has been expanded to 4 characters. So now that the local, remote, and foreign transactions will be automatically flagged to help determine the relationship between the sites. Next. This is a new drop-down menu that's been created. It's been added to associate foreign sites to their proper network. And you also have the ability to store address information for each site has been added. Next. We've also added the ability to apply sales tax to fleet fueling transactions at the card level based on the destination and location that the vehicle originates from. So this is going to ensure that the correct taxes are applied for those fleet fueling transactions. Next. We've also added a new shared tank feature. It gives you the ability to easily account for cost of goods and your inventory when a card lock system draws from a shared tank, such as one shared for retail and bulk plant sales. This new feature eliminates the steps you used to have to take by it automatically posts your card lock sales to the appropriate card lock general ledger account while relieving inventory from the appropriate retail or bulk warehouse. Next. In addition to adding an annual fee to your card lock invoices, you now have the ability to add recurring and non-recurring fees to your card lock invoices at the account level, per billing cycle or a monthly cycle or just a one-time basis. So these fees can be flat fees, or they can be fees that are triggered when a customer falls below a certain minimum gallon purchase agreement. And you can add multiple fees to each of your customers' accounts. So an example of some of the fees you might want to add on a regular one-time basis would be invoice processing, mailing, or non-EFT fees. So next, I think that's the last screen I have, and it's pretty much been a really quick high-level overview of some of those new card-link features, and I'm going to be turning it back over to Vicki so she can tell you about some of the exciting things in our general accounting.
Thank you, Lisa. In 2013, Sage added visual workflows, and this is a pretty exciting area that I found as I studied it to be very, very exciting. It comes with 7 predefined processes that you can, of course, make them your own, but also you can actually create your own custom workflows, the saving time. And why would we want to do this? Well, you might have new employees. It can increase their productivity and also streamline those tasks that possibly that you rarely do. It does have a wizard that helps you to write those, and you design where you'd like the workflow to be placed and which module you would like it to appear within. So once set up, then, if you would, next, you will actually see that the workflow is designed. The user would just press on those green round buttons, and then as they press on it, it takes them specifically to where they need to be in the software. So if you can imagine, if I was a user starting out in a workflow at the beginning, I will understand then what my work is affecting others behind me, you know, all the work. But it would help us all to understand the processes within our organization, help us quickly get to where we need to do our work. Next. In accounts payable and receivable, there's a flag now for inactive for both AP and AR. You're able there to also assign reason codes of why they are inactive, so it prevents your team from inadvertently, you know, using them, but yet maintain the historical transaction information. So again, you can inactivate both vendors and customers. All actions will be in the audit logs, so that you do have that information. And if you receive, you know, customer accounts and receive payments, you can also, while, you know, restricting data entry to that account, to those accounts that are inactive. On the Sage Payment Solutions, you're able to now, Sage stores, prevents fraud, and reduces your exposure by storing your sensitive cardholder data in a secure cloud-based Sage Exchange Vault. So that Sage Payment Solutions has now made it that you're not storing that PCI, you know, information, that very important information on your server. It's actually in their vault for PCI compliance. On the ACH electronic payments, on that it was you're able to post ACH payments through to the bank reconciliation. You might know in accounts payable, instead of writing your vendors a check, you can actually do ACH right within the DM2 Sage software. You also now can see cleared checks information right if you activate it. in accounts payable, vendor maintenance, you can see if that check has cleared or not. So you don't have to go to bank reconciliation to see if the check has cleared. So there's another benefit there. And then on the AR national accounts, it does allow you that. Currently in your systems, you might have that. You have the supplier, when you talk about, when Anthony was speaking about buybacks, you might have the supplier as the accounts receivable account, and then you have ship-tos for all those accounts you deliver on their behalf for. In the system now, they have raised that to a higher level so that you can actually create national accounts, so that an example, ConocoPhillips would be the national account. You would have other AR accounts specific to your customer, but yet they are connected through this new feature functionality of the AR national accounts. Next. On the Sage Paperless, the Sage Paperless standard in 4.3, they just made it compatible now with public mail servers, and it just, the communication between the client and the server is encrypted, so it just protects your sensitive information, so just something to mention here. Next. On inventory, next, items can be flagged as inactive, just like an AR and AP for your customers and your vendors, by checking this check mark in inventory maintenance. Next. And the inventory has been expanded now to 10 tiers. So instead of 5 tiers for pricing, next, you actually have 10 tiers. So just good to know that if you want to go more out beyond 5, you now can. Next. On the Sage Intelligence, you have actually in this 2013 release, it has been performance has been enhanced on the report designer functionality. Sage has removed the complexity of the designing of financial reports. It now provides a drag and drop, and it will automatically auto-size each text column according to the longest value. And also, you have within mapping tool interface, you easily can add your reporting groups and delete existing ones if you'd so like, and you can utilize the enhanced internal logic to more efficiently handle larger amounts of row reporting groups. So they're just speeding up the performance, with this this product. Next. On the, you can now set a flag that if a sales order is generated that we don't have the product, you can actually check a flag here in the options, setup options, and have that if it is a, for example, lubricant and we're short 20 drums, it could actually create automatically a purchase order for us for those 20 drums that we don't have, saving time for creation of a purchase order. Next. On Delivery Scheduler, I wanted to share that we have done a redesign on budgets in our home heat and propane module, and I'm just going to speak to a couple of these because there's so many on this slide. But the Delivery Schedulers in the new framework, it does have access, of course, as Chris mentioned earlier, to custom office. Does have a budget flag at the tank level now, and budget amount changes mid-season. It's accounted for properly, and the budget aging prints on the AR statements and displays in the aging screen. So I thought those were helpful to note. Next. This is an example of a budget statement. Just showing you just those items there. Give you a moment to kind of glance at that. And then next, reporting. We have reporting that shows the actual balances, on the budget payments. So it can give you a monthly report, month over month, and you can add in the sort the last 2 years for comparison. It includes the conversion factor, so if you run it for less than a year or more than a year, it does that for you. The number of months in the budget seasons entered arrive at the monthly budget payment, and then, of course, the outstanding error balance is added to the adjusted estimate. So we help you with a great report that gives you insight into what's going on with that specific customer tank. Next. And now I'd like to hand it back to you, Tom.
All right, thanks, Vicki. This slide is really to illustrate that your subscription dollars have been hard at work on more than just framework. You can see this is literally listing every feature that we've come out with since 4th 4.3, so this is all the 4.4 and 4.5 features. And there are well over 100. If you add in the new 2013 features, we're well over 100. So really, this is just to illustrate that your subscription dollars have been hard at work, and it's been a good investment for you there. Now, to get some more detail on these features, we've got a couple of different sources for you, or resources for you. First, if you go to our website and you go to the How May We Help You drop-down menu that you see right in our header there, one of the questions is, I would like to request an upgrade, or one of the actions is, I would like to request an upgrade. Once you hit that menu item, it'll bring you to our Request an Upgrade screen here. And if you click there, you'll be able to get a complete detailed list of all these new features in a summary form with a little further explanation on each of those. And then you can see at the bottom, there's the direct URL to get to this. And as I said earlier, we're going to post this presentation on the website. I'll make sure you know when it's available so you can refer to this later. The next source is, as you know, we've been doing webinars now religiously for the last several years. And every time we've come out with a major release, we've come out with a what's new in webinar for that release. And if you go to our YouTube channel, it's the DM2 Software Inc. YouTube channel. And the easiest way to access these, if you go to the playlist link, you'll see that we've categorized all the different types of webinars that we offer, and there's a category called What's New. And right now there are 5 videos in there. Come Monday, there will be 6, because we will post this recording in there as well. So it's a good way for you to review all of this information at your leisure and then share it with your other employees that may not have been able to attend today's webinar. The next thing I want to make everyone aware of is, about 2 weeks ago we sent a notice around to everybody to let them know that with the introduction of version 2013, we're going to be following Sage's lead and discontinuing version 4.3 effective September 30th of 2015. You may have already received notification directly from Sage announcing the end of life of version 4.3 and earlier versions effective September 30th of 2013. However, as a master developer and a reseller, and as Chris mentioned, it does take us some time to add all of our petroleum-related enhancements to the system. So we're going to give you a little extra time. We're going to extend that deadline for support to September 30th of 2015, which will hopefully give everyone ample time to get their systems upgraded. The other thing I'd also like to take this opportunity to remind you of is that FRx will no longer be supported effective September 30th of 2015. Since Microsoft discontinued the sale and support of FRx on January 31st of 2011, Sage has been providing Sage Intelligence, a powerful and easy-to-use graphical financial reporting tool, in its place. So when you upgrade, Sage will allow, existing FRx customers who are current on their maintenance plans to trade in their FRx licenses for an equivalent number of Sage Intelligence Report Manager license at no additional charge. So we wanted to make sure everyone is aware of that. And again, with all the features that we've added since 4.3, we think that there's plenty of good reason and return on your investment to go ahead and make that upgrade. The other thing to keep in mind too is if you're on the older versions, you're not able to get tax table updates. And if you're running the Sage credit card processing module, those older versions are not going to be PCI compliant. So there's obviously other reasons you want to go ahead and make that upgrade. All right, the next thing I wanted to remind everybody of is when you're dealing with DM2, you're really dealing with the whole Sage community. As a master and developer and reseller, we've been a master developer and reseller for Sage since '91. That allows you to not only tap into what DM2 has to offer, but there's literally hundreds of other master developers out there with solutions that can extend your system even further. One of the other things I'd like to point out too is Sage puts a lot of effort and resources and invests a lot in R&D. Between what DM2 has invested and what Sage has invested, it's nearly $250 million in 2013 alone. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is Sage 100 is actually recommended by more CPAs than any other mid-tier accounting system on the market, making it the market share leader. And also, with the introduction and integration of Sage CRM, you have an award-winning CRM option available. And then the other thing to keep in mind, excuse me, the other thing to keep in mind is DM2 ranks very highly in the Sage reseller network. For the last 13 years or so, we've finished in the top 10, putting us in the 1% tier of all Sage resellers. So when DM2 talks to Sage, they listen. We have a lot of influence with Sage. Chris has participated in their product development committees, and whenever they're introducing new programs, DM2 is usually the first to participate in those. So we can obviously kind of alter and change that to apply to our customer base, since it is very unique for Sage. Other thing I wanted to illustrate here with this next slide is this, as I said earlier, system goes way beyond accounting and petroleum handling. You can see you can literally manage every aspect of your business with the modules that Sage and DM2 have to offer here. And then just to kind of summarize some of the high points there, obviously we spent a lot of work with the three-tiered architecture, and you've heard a lot about how that's going to benefit you with the layered code isolation that Chris talked extensively about. And then the roles-based security and the APIs in particular. And then one other thing that Sage is really doing to help you expand your system without having to invest in further IT resources, additional servers, and that type of thing, is they're leveraging the cloud. So you have what they call connected services. So the ERP system can actually reach out through cloud connections to a lot of other services. One of the newest and most interesting to our customers has been Sage Inventory Advisor. And you can find a whole webinar on that on our YouTube channel as well. And then again, as I said, you know, we and Sage invest heavily in R&D. Next thing is we do invest not only in product development, but we invest in our staff. We have spent over 500 hours alone this year in certifying our consultants to handle the different Sage products that we have to offer. And we do a lot of internal training on the DM2 modules. On top of that, we have weekly training sessions. We do best practice sharing during those sections. And then we have all of our installers come in on an annual basis to participate in what we call Install Week. So again, we put a lot of effort into not only product development, but developing our people as well. Now I'd like to hand it over to Rob Pierce to talk about the next steps.
Thanks, Tom. So it's certainly an exciting time to be at DM2. Between the SQL capabilities, that's just opening up a new world in business intelligence development. The three-tiered architecture is making it easier to integrate to peripheral systems. We're getting a lot of people lining up for upgrades. So if you're part of an upgrade is if you're interested in changing platforms, moving to a SQL database option, please talk to someone in sales about what is involved in switching platforms, or if you're also interested in some of the additional modules that you may have seen today. Going into upgrade, something new has kind of happened. We certainly continue to have what we call the traditional upgrade, so that's taking your existing install, going through a conversion and migration utility to put you onto the new version with all of the new features. So it's, you had apples before, and now you've got apples on a new version. A lot of customers are exploring a different path. We call it the Advanced Business Solutions upgrade, and it's basically going through a new install approach. So these fully capable ERP systems, they're designed to be configured for what your current management team's vision is, what's going on in the external business environment, and what's the known future environment. So at that point in time, in 2007, whenever you went through your implementation, your consultant configured and designed that system to meet your needs at that point in time. What we're finding is that over time, the management team is either changing out, or people are getting a different vision, they're growing and learning, or the external business environment is changing. We're moving into new geographies, we're moving into new business lines. So some of these companies are kind of growing outside of that original implementation, and those customers are choosing to go through the new install experience. So everything's on the table. You could revisit your chart of accounts, renumber your inventory, rework your product lines, renumber your customers, do a complete database cleanup. Just whatever you want to do is on the table. You get treated like a brand new customer, and you get the system completely reconfigured to whatever your current vision is. So we just want to let everyone know there's two options if you're thinking of moving up to V2013, traditional upgrade and the ABS upgrade or the new install approach. And another thing we've been really proud of, Denise Austin, one of our consultants, has been leading the way, is the DM2 University classes. So these are online web-based classes. We're running almost 1 or 2 per week at this point in time, and we continue to add to that curriculum schedule. So that's another great resource for helping customers keep their employees trained or just bringing up their skills to the next level. Back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Rob. All right, now for those of you who have attended our webinars before, right before we get to the Q&A session, we always talk about next month's webinar. And obviously, 2015 is approaching quickly, and to help you get ready for year-end processing, Denise Austin is actually going to be holding a webinar on December 11th to cover some of the best practices in preparing for year-end processing. She's going to talk a little bit about the differences between month-end and year-end processing, why or why not to have a 13th period, how you can be prepared for year-end, proper order to follow when closing out modules, and in particular what payroll reporting and AP 1099 processing changes you should be aware of. So we invite you to join us on December 11th at 11:30 Pacific Time, 1:30 Central Time. I'm actually going to be sending out this invitation shortly after the close of this webinar. So on that note, we've got a few minutes left. I'm going to open it up for questions and answers, and it looks like we've got a few questions that have come in. First question is from Steve. Steve is asking, how does Sage DM2 2013 work in a cloud infrastructure? Chris, you're probably the best one to address that, so why don't you take that question?
It's actually a really great question. There's nothing preventing the system, specifically the ERP system, the SQL backend, all of the CRM pieces, and those are actually all web-based already. But you can absolutely move those onto cloud servers in a hosted environment like Azure or AWS, or a media temple or a third party. You just have to configure the virtual environments that they run in and do the publications so that they're secure. So that would be the responsible of your IT group to make sure that happens. But you can absolutely run them on another third-party software's hosted system or hosted servers. We have a number of customers doing that currently, even with versions 4.4 and 4.5. 2013 supports it out of the box.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Chris. All right, the next question is from Jeff over at Frost. Jeff is asking if we can expand on the FuelMaster card system support, and I'll go ahead and address that question. Jeff, and for everybody else that's familiar with FuelMaster card systems, traditionally we have had very little demand in the Java arena for them. I used to work for Petroleum, the card reader manufacturer, and we always saw FuelMaster as more of a proprietary private fleet system. But obviously they're making inroads into some of the networks as a choice of hardware. And we recognize that, and we've now developed an interface that would allow you to take their transaction file and import it into CardLink. Now, keep in mind some of the other systems that are more prevalent out there, like the Petroleum and the gas boy systems. We've been doing a lot of development over the years for those, and we actually support something called auto polling, where we could actually connect to all of those systems site controllers and bring in that transaction data that way. With the Fuel Master interface, at least the first iteration of it, you'd need the Fuel Master software to pull out all the transactions. And then we've recognized that transaction file format layout in CardLink now, so you can import it that way. So hopefully that answers your question there, Jeff. The next question that we have, and he just typed me, so I assume that does. Thank you, Jeff. The next question we have is from Chris over at Relodyne. What do you mean overlaps with Sage, or excuse me, with SQL data warehouse reporting? Vicki, you touched on that when you were doing the Sage Intelligence, that there's a lot of overlap now between those. Maybe you could expand on that for Chris and the rest of the group.
I can, thank you. Yes, the question's a good one. What we're finding, because Sage Intelligence can not only help you with financial reporting, but it also can reach out to your subsidiary modules and glean and gather information from those as well. So think about Sage Intelligence being a very good a tool that you could actually marry up financial information with your subsidiary modules. So when I mentioned about it could be a replacement, it just gives you that capability. We wrote the DM2 SQL warehouse, of course, is there, and it's been there for years providing that access. But now with Sage Intelligence, it's reaching out and gathering and helping you to create those really what-ifs inside of Sage Intelligence. And Rob, would you like to add anything to what I just stated?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to say anything different. So DM2 wrote the SQL data warehouse solution based off of SQL and stock Excel about 8 or 9 years ago. It's done a great job. And then over the last 3-4 years, Sage developed Sage Intelligence. In fact, they bought the company. Now it's a business intelligence division out of South Africa. And it's like Excel on steroids. It's got connectors to all kinds of multiple data sources, so I could connect it to my CRM, my ERP, or any other peripheral system. It's got lots of advanced features inside of Excel, time intelligence features, anything you would need for financial reporting, in-memory analytics. It lets you use the full Microsoft BI stack for Power Pivot and Power Maps and Power Viewer. And then on the output side, it's got automatic report distribution, so you can define who's going to get what kinds of reports on what schedules. So I think this is what it means by overlap. It could do everything that our base SQL data warehouse solution does and more. And it's a more recent, upcoming version of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Vicki. Next question is from Chris again. He is asking, has the job cost module been changed or upgraded?
No,
yeah, you read my mind. I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I read your mind. The job cost module has not been moved forward to the new framework by Sage. There are a handful of modules that Sage is rethinking. There is with job cost and work order and time and billing and payroll, each one of those is on a path for a rethink of how they work and what their mission is in life. To give you an example, job cost and work order are in some ways being rethought in terms of more of a project management mentality for some of the things that go on there. So at this point, those things are not available as full framework modules. What does that mean sort of as the rubber hits the road? Well, what it really means is if you depend on job cost, work order, payroll, these guys, you can still upgrade to 2013, but you cannot take advantage of moving to the SQL platform. So you would need to stay with ProvideX, the ProvideX database, which is fully supported, still offered. Always remember that the SQL database is an option. And of course, DM2 is going to continue with our synchronization products for SQL and we even have some new things in the pipeline. So it's just a pause while Sage is thinking about how those things fit into the model and what they should look like going forward.
Yeah, so Tom, you might be able to speak to this, but a good example of that, I think, is payroll.
Yeah.
They didn't move the classic payroll to the new framework, but instead they're going to have a cloud payroll offering.
Right.
And that's what this new technology platform enables things in 2013 that we just simply couldn't do before. So having a cloud-based payroll connected and integrated to the ERP is now an option. They might do things like that with job cost.
Absolutely, Rob. That's a good point. So those particular modules have been, as Rob's talking about payroll moving to a new web-based system, job cost and work order being evaluated. That will not prevent you from upgrading to 2013. You can absolutely move to 2013 and take advantage of the new functionality in the object frameworks and the other modules, like I described earlier. What you will be limited on at this today is the ability to move to SQL as a backend. Tom?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And one thing to point out, what Rob had mentioned about the payroll option, you may have seen a recent press release from Sage. They acquired a payroll company, and so those kind of changes are kind of in the very early stages. So we'll keep you posted as things progress along there. But that does sound like that's exactly the intention, is to move that out of the on-premise software and put it out on the cloud there, and kind of continue to march forward with that hybrid ERP on-premises cloud combination there. That's all the questions that we've received so far. So I just want to remind everybody that today's webinar has been recorded. Once the recording is available, we'll post it along with a copy of today's presentation on our website, and put a link up there to our YouTube channel where you can look at the recording. If you think of any questions after the webinar, or would like to find out more about any of today's topics, please feel free to email us at sales@dm2.com. I would like to thank everybody for doing such a nice job with their presentation. So thank you, Chris, Rob, Lisa, Anthony, and Vicki. Nice job there. And I would like to thank everybody for attending today's What's New in version 2013 webinar. Thank you very much, everyone.